So a lot of manuscripts, of course, is what's called a colophon, which is the section at the end where the scribe says, it was the third day of the week of such and such month in a year, and I wrote this for so and so. But most manuscripts that hasn't survived, and in Torah scrolls it never existed. There are actually some exceptions, but that's a different story.
I have a story about an exception.
Ooh, I want to hear that.
Okay.
So, well, there's a bunch of exceptions where the colophon is a forgery, but there's actually a bunch of real exceptions. It's not a forgery. Not when I say a bunch, it's a few dozen maybe that have ever been found. Maybe less than that.
A lot for Megillat Esther.
No, I'm talking about Torah.
I know, but like with Megillat Esther also, like a lot of these Italian ones, like these young women and actually girls that were writing Megillat Esther, 200, 300, 400 years ago.
Yeah.
Some of these Megillat Esther that have been, up for auction in the last several years. And they all have colophons.
Okay.
And some of the Sofrot living today also, have colophons attached to their Megillot Esther.
Oh, just of Esther.
Yeah.
So tell me about the colophons.
The colophon. Okay. Well, obviously with Megillot Esther, it's quite common, especially with these young women. There have also been notes left behind. There was a Torah scroll that I checked, must have been 15 years ago now. And I won't say the community. I don't tend to announce communities because it's their Torah and their business. But so I was checking it and I was rolling through, and it obviously, was very old, and it was made up of a couple of different scrolls, and it has been patched together a bit, but very nicely.
It was made up of a bunch of scrolls.
Well, sometimes if a Sefer is part of it's damaged, and you either will rewrite new and attach to that, or you will maybe have different damaged parts and you amalgamate two other scrolls to get one good usable scroll.
I call that a Franken Scroll.
Oh, you have not seen the Franken Scroll we have at our house.
Okay.
It's literally like...
And I don't mean that in a negative way.
Patchwork. No, we don't either.
I think Franken Scrolls are beautiful because you think you have one scroll and you realize this is actually 10 scrolls.
So many different traditions. So I'm going through this Torah and I'm taking notes, and it needs a little bit of repair, but it's not in too bad a shape because whoever fixed it last did a very good job. And I get to the end and I go, oh, isn't that interesting? There's an extra chelik I see. So what that means is at the end of the Torah, at the very end, where it ends with the word Yisrael, obviously, I noticed there was more stitching and extra parchment before we got to the actual wooden roller. And I thought, it's probably just because there hadn't been enough, at the end, because you really should have more at the end, because then when you roll...
Column? What are you saying?
Well, there's an extra piece. It wasn't just a column, but I mean, you need to have more at both ends anyway, so that the roller doesn't damage the letters at either end. That's just a practical.
Right.
So then I opened it up, and I went, oh, and someone had written on this extra piece, Tikanti. I fixed this.
Are you serious?
I am serious. Very carefully, he wrote, Tikanti, Eliezer Friedman, Pesht, 1947.
Wow.
It gives me chills. Yeah, and I was
so he said, I fixed it, so-and-so, and the
his
year.
His name is Eliezer
and
Friedman. And I'm thinking, 1947, what software was in Pesht in 1947 fixing Torahs? Like, that has got to be the most incredible story.
Wow.
Ah.
So let's start with, I'm going to assume he
Obviously, he wrote it all in Hebrew, so.
I'm going to assume he was part of the Neolog movement. And
I don't know anything about. I would love to.
So that's
I would love to find out who he was.
The largest denomination in Hungary. It's actually one of the oldest denominations in let's say in modern Judaism, right? I mean, it's older than the Reform movement, if I'm not mistaken. It's today it's still the largest denomination in Hungary, and I'm guessing that in the Neolog movement, it's okay to put a Colophon. I don't know. I'm making stuff up because I don't know. You're right.
Know. You've got me sitting right here, but you're making stuff up.
Wow. No, meaning I'm making it up, and that I'm trying to hypothesize. Why would this have happened?
Yeah. So
this isn't supposed to happen.
Some say that if you do add an extra, you can't write anything on the actual Torah scroll. That is adding to Torah. That is a massive no-no, as you know. But if you sew an extra piece on and maybe write on the back, then that's not adding to Torah. I don't remember. It was a really long time ago.
Wow.
But it was. He did make a point of having extra. extra parchment. Again, 1947 in Pest. Like, where is he getting this beautiful white new parchment? It was pristine.
Wow.
And he'd taken the trouble of sewing it on and then writing this. And I just thought, I need to, and I asked the rabbi, I was like, where did you get this scroll from? And he's like, I don't know. So I thought, okay. So I've asked around some of the Hungarian Jews and like Hungarian like rabbinical students that I know here in London. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin, but I mean, that's
crazy.
That is going to be a really good story. That's going to be a book, a movie, a miniseries,
I don't know
podcast.
About that.
You don't know this man's story. It could be amazing.
That is a pretty incredible story.
Yeah.
So the colophons I know about, there's two types. So most of the colophons that are considered authentic are on Karaite Torah scrolls. They're mostly in the Furkovich collection in St. Petersburg. A bunch of those are forgeries, but some of them are actually real. Some of them are authentic.
Really? Are they really authentic?
Well, according to the scholars who studied them in the 19th century, they're authentic, yeah.
I'm sure they know more than I do.
There's one that's definitely authentic that is at Trinity College in Cambridge.
Yeah.
And that's also a Karaite scroll. It's not actually a colophon. It's a vow inscription. That the guy had something happen in his life, and he made a vow: if I get through this, I'm going to dedicate a Torah scroll. I'm going to pay for a Torah scroll. And then when he finally has the Torah scroll written, and at the end he writes out, this is what happened, and there's 10 signatures.
Really?
Yeah,
that is
10
interesting.
witnesses,
So
yeah.
he was like, I made this neder, and I have fulfilled my neder.
That's exactly right.
Wow. So
Yeah.
10 signatures. It sounds like
Yeah.
maybe he had like a big bet in there, like a minion.
No, it's kind of like, there were 10 witnesses, and
Right.
what was it with Boaz? Wasn't there 10 people in the gate of Bethlehem or something? I don't remember. Anyway, so the other example, which is a mystery, is there's a Torah scroll from Otranto, which is southern Italy, in the early 12th century, which has a colophon with a specific date. As far as we know, there were no Karaites in Italy in the 12th century, so you can't blame it on the Karaites in this case. So somebody decided, okay, I can write a colophon in the 12th century. So that already kind of makes sense because it's so long ago. It was before some of these rules crystallized. I mean, the rules were there, but maybe they weren't equally applied everywhere.
Right.
But in 1947, I mean,
yeah, that's very modern.
come on, we've got books that have been printed that say this is what you have to do and what you can't do.